Welcome to this week's episode of The Wolf of Wyn Street. I'm joined today by Danny Attias. Danny, in some ways, I feel that we are the opposite of each other, where I used to be in sales and now I'm on the buy side when it comes to software transactions. You used to buy software as CIO for many years, and now you've gone to the dark side, and now you're in sales. So what's the story?
Well, we got some unique perspectives. And you say opposite, but we're both wearing black. We've both got matching the Roger on cloud trainers. I didn't think I'd ever meet another person wearing a pair of Roger on cloud trainers. So that's pretty cool. I spent my career as a CIO, most recently at the London Business School for about 4 years. And before that, Anthony Nolan, the Stem Cell Register, which was just like superb. 2 very different not-for-profits. And before that, in various other industries, retail, fintech, and so on. But always as a buyer. I'd always regarded myself as a buyer and thought about that quite a lot because I spent most of my time recruiting people, buying stuff, solving problems. And I never thought I'd be in sales. I was like, my brother is into sales and like hugely successful. And I thought, I'm not into sales. Because I had a very different perspective of what sales was. And in a way, I was selling all the time in my role as a CIO, which is very cliche to say, but I was also selling products all the time without realizing it. Because if I found a really good product, then I tell everyone about it. I go, and when you work with not-for-profit, everyone shares. So everyone talks to each other, everyone knows each other. All the charity IT leaders know each other. All the education IT leaders know each other. So whenever I found a great product like Meraki before they got bought by Cisco, or Google Apps before, cloud-based collaboration and stuff was a thing, I'll tell everyone about it. There'll be case studies and interviews and all sorts, and realize that I got to a point where I'd found an amazing product, Nebula One by Cloudforce. Sorry for your listeners who are not watching, I just gestured to my big Cloudforce logo on my t-shirt. And I was just telling everyone about it. I was telling everyone about it because it was awesome. And then I got to a point, I'm like, hold on, I'm the lead European sales person.
You're doing their job
product.
For them, yeah.
I'm like, maybe I should be on their payroll. And decided at that point to change careers. We can get into that in a moment, though.
So you studied chemical engineering, is that right? How does a guy studying chemical engineering become a CIO?
So I could say that my education, my training was about structure, it was about process, it was about critical thinking, it was about design, it was about implementation. And there are lots of parallels between what I studied at Loughborough University in chemical engineering to working a career in IT. There were loads of parallels. There was giving presentations. It felt very similar. But the truth is that I always assumed I was going to be an engineer. I don't know why, but I just decided I was going to be an engineer. I wanted to be an engineer. And I enjoyed chemistry, so I thought chemical engineering would be the one to do, not realizing there's no chemistry in chemical engineering.
Seriously?
Which was useful.
That's not what I'd think.
The chemists do the chemistry, the engineer scale it up. But the chemists do the chemistry, which was good because by the time I did A-levels, I did not understand chemistry anymore. So I was somewhat relieved. And the reality is I didn't understand engineering. Like even last week, I was on a bourbon distillery tour. And so I was surrounded by distillation towers and pumps. And I just looked at it and I go, I don't really understand that. I don't really understand what a distillation tower does. I spent 4 years studying it and it never really made sense. Whereas IT, I'd always understood. So I'd worked as a chemical engineer for a year with Kodak before they went pop. And we were mixing liquids in the liquid mixing department, right? It's exciting. But photographic paper has liquids on it. And if you want good photos, then it's got to come from somewhere. And that was the job. And I just realized I didn't really get it. So I thought I need a job in London and I needed a job that was easy, a career that was easy. I didn't have to work really hard to understand it. And I figured that IT was it. And I applied for loads of jobs and just got insanely lucky when I got a job at the John Lewis Partnership as a graduate trainee in their IT department. And I was there for 9 years, the rest is history. But it's just everything about my career has just been easy in the sense I understood it. I could apply myself.
So from there, you got to being voted the UK's CIO of the Year a few years back, right? So that was a hell of a rise.
Yeah.
What did it take to get to that point?
I mean, that was super weird. So that was the 2020 CIO 100. It looks kind of like linear and easy. And if I look back at my career, it's pretty linear and easy if you look at it and paint it simply. But at one point, I was a head of infrastructure and I became a CIO. And I use that name in quotation marks because I was still a head of infrastructure. I was still infrastructure, security, desktop servers, data centers, networks. But I had the CIO title. And I remember a recruitment consultant saying to me, very supportively, you're not a real CIO. And he didn't mean it in a demeaning way. He's just going, you don't do application development, you don't do data, you don't do digital. I didn't know what data and digital even were at that moment in time. And at that point, I made a very concerted effort saying, number one, my next career move has to be outside of a particular sector. Because IT you can do in different companies. Marketing you can do in different companies.
Sales.
Like sales. Yeah, exactly. Like sales you can do. And you can get really pigeonholed. So number one, I've got to change industries. But number two is how do I get a proper CIO job, right? One that has application development was what was in my mind. And I worked really hard to try and find. And I actually took a role that was half the budget and half the team size. Same job title, Chief Information Officer, but it got me that experience of application development. Once you've got it as far as anyone's concerned. That's where you are. It's a bit like moving into be effectively a general manager for European business. 6 months in, that's what you are. People aren't going, oh, you're just a CIO. Can you really do sales? Can you really lead a business? Can you really be... No one is asking that question anymore. So you have to reinvent yourself in your own mind, but also in person. So when I got that CIO job as an application development lead, by the way, I knew nothing about application development. And the CEO even said to me, well, you've not done this before. And I'm like, well, I didn't do wide area networks until I did wide area networks. I didn't know what a data center was until I had to build out a data center. I'm a quick study. And she literally rejected 5 other candidates that day and offered me the job. I'm like, okay, now I've got to prove it. How on earth am I going to do this? I don't know the first thing about it. And I recruited just the most incredible person to run the application development side. An old friend, colleague of mine, Laura Phillips, who pretty much built Ocado, the software development in Ocado. And she came in to Anti-Nolan with me and she ran that entire division. I learned everything I know from her in 2 different companies. So then I had to figure out what is digital and what is data. Again, I'm not being facetious. Everyone was going, we need to be more digital. I was like, I don't know what you mean. It took me 3 years. I was the data privacy officer and the chief information security officer. It probably took me about 10 years to figure out the difference between security and privacy. So, and I wasn't bluffing it. I would just like genuinely, they're kind of like very similar, but what is the actual difference? And I find that very few people know what the difference is. And so they get conflated with each other.
Do some people pretend to know what they're talking about when actually they don't?
Yeah, but then I think they're pretending to themselves. So I think they know what they're talking about. So again, it's not negative. But your question was about CIO 100. So when I got that CIO job, actually the job at Anti-Nolan was IT director. And I'm like, can we make it CIO, please? I was already a CIO in the previous role. Why? Because I wanted one day to be on the list of the top 100 CIOs. That was it. Like, just make the list.
Really?
Just make the list. And like, I applied. I spoke to one of the judges and I was like, do you think I should apply? And he says, well, look, if you don't make it, no one knows. And if you do make it, you're in the top 100, so you can't lose. And actually, it allows the judges to see progress over time. So put an application in. And that year, I made number 9. And I thought, that's it. Like, I've made it. Top 10.
Wow.
Top
Straight
10,
to the top
that's
10.
That's it. Like, no messing. Highest place charity CIO. Highest placed newcomer, first time entry. And I thought, I've made it. I didn't even apply the next year. I just like, I'm not even going to go there. I've done it. Top 10. And then the next year, I thought, I might as well put my name in. And when I got that number 1, honestly, I had...
So that was the second year?
That was just, yeah. So I've placed 9, 1, and 4. You could argue, well, how clinical is it? How methodical is it? You know, what metrics is it based on? It's a group of your peers. And they know they can filter out the bullshit. Now you got to tick the explicit box when you upload this podcast, by the way. They know the difference. And it was the fact that my team were delivering so much impact and change with a very small team and a very small budget. That was kind of the key differentiator, as well as many other things around digital transformation, data transformation, equity, diversity. We were doing quite a lot for a very, very small team. The team was 8 when I joined it, and I think it grew to about 25, so not particularly massive. But it absolutely changed everything. It changed how, back to my point earlier, it changed how people look at you. You're the number one CIO, or you're a CIO, or you're a buyer. People will judge you based on how you dress, how you look, what you wear, what badge you wear. And then you can use that to your advantage if you choose to, but it's a choice.
So at WYN, we deal a lot with enterprise and basically large software vendor negotiations, right? Software and AI negotiations. We have a lot of work in the public sector, especially UK universities. And you were CIO at London Business School for a number of years. Could you share a little bit about your time there when it came to those big software vendors? What was your experience like in those partnerships, and especially in those negotiations with them when you were buying that stuff or renewing it?
Yeah. And I'll extend beyond London Business School because I've been kind of doing large procurement exercises for a long time. And as much as possible, I would avoid large procurement exercises and actually focus on what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, who are the vendors, who are the resellers, what is the value that's being delivered. And I suppose it goes through a number of different phases. So phase 1 is, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? And is this a problem that is going to be solved by a solution that you can buy, or is this an internal problem? Like the amount of times I've not bought a CRM because the CRM is not going to solve the problem. The data quality, the ownership, the processes is going to solve the problem. And you can do that on a 40 quid a month thing that you just brought off the internet, quite frankly, until you've built some governance and some structure and some maturity. Salesforce is not going to solve your problem. Guaranteed. So that's the first thing, is actually, do I even need to buy something? And then the second thing is, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? Like being really, really clear. So I remember going through a procurement, like one of my first proper procurement exercises was around network, local area network. And everyone was like, Cisco, you got to buy Cisco, you got to buy Cisco. The CTO was saying that. All the network engineers, well, they want to work on Cisco, right? It's great for their CV. And I had a look at the market and had to go, what is the thing that we need to do? And the answer was absolutely not Cisco. And they were just fuming. I was like, well, and you can boil it down. I think that if you cannot write the solution or the problem or the challenge or the question on a Post-it note, you don't understand the solution or the problem or the challenge, right? So we ended up buying Foundry, and we actually bought it when it was a different company. It was called Foundry, became Brocade, and it really boiled down to, it could do everything the Cisco network could do, but it actually gave you the ability to sample the network in real time, constantly, rather than by exception. And you could do that on the switches and not the routers. And we didn't need routers because we had a VPLS network. That was all very technical. But what it boiled down to is Cisco was not the right solution at that time. And so it was super, super simple. And Brocade were trying to make a name for themselves. They were the fiber experts, but they were new into the local area network market. And so they were really keen to try and incentivize that. And then you get into the negotiations.
And when you were negotiating with them, did you take the lead? Did procurement take the lead? What was that relationship like between the IT and procurement organization?
I've never had procurement take a lead.
Really?
Ever. Because they'll just go and find 3 vendors. I'm buying a Foundry network from Foundry. How am I going to find 3 vendors? I think they actually made me go Cisco, Foundry. Now, I would do business cases. I would do business cases largely for myself to go, why am I doing it? Have I considered it? It was almost like being back at university, writing coursework.
Yeah.
I'd be up until 2 a.m, writing these kind of detailed business cases, which no one may ever read, but I knew that I was really writing it for myself to go, have I fully considered? Have I asked all the questions and answered them? But I would always take the lead. And at that time, I had a kind of simplistic perspective on what negotiation was, which is the cheapest possible price. And didn't really understand that there's an appropriate level, that you might be compromising stuff. I probably did appreciate the high value things that I could give away for low cost, like a case study, and the high value things that they could give away, like a software upgrade, and it would be low cost to them. So I think I was always very familiar with that, but I always took the lead, and I would always work on getting the best possible pricing. And I was getting very, very good pricing.
How did you know?
I knew you'd go there.
Have to.
So I have one, I can think of a couple where I got very good pricing. 3 actually, but one of them, the guy who sold it to me was long since retired. And I met him like 10 years later, and he's like, I'd never given a discount that big to anyone, right? This was way beyond any kind of professional relationship or anything else. And it was a huge discount. This is on storage area networks, or it might be on global Wi-Fi networks, or it might be on global telephony. And those are very kind of commodity things. Yes, you have to rely on what the vendor is telling you, but you also can speak to your peers. Again, if you're a not-for-profit, everyone compares notes. I'm very conscious of that. I sell to not-for-profit. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that we got some very good pricing, but to what end? Like, that saving in that moment in time doesn't solve your business problems. No one really ultimately remembers or recognizes the value of that beyond the actual check signing. And also, how much effort was it to get that particular discount? Or did you compromise anything on that journey? So I think it's much more than that. So in fact, even when you're buying from a small supplier, maybe you want to pay more. Right? Maybe you want to support that supplier because that supplier being in business 3 years from now is pretty important to your purchase. And that rather than getting the lowest possible price, you want to invest in that supplier, getting the best possible outcome, building up a good support team, and having, in our case, like responsiveness in UK hours. So there's a bit of a balance. I think I was pretty conscious of that. Some are more conscious and some are less conscious of that type of thing.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And you said a couple of minutes ago something very interesting, is that you knew that you had a great price because
I knew if I kept talking, I would say something interesting.
It only took about 24 minutes.
Monkeys and typewriters, that's the goal. Sorry, you were saying.
You met the guy who sold you this thing, and you had a conversation with him. He was gone by that point from the organization, right? Yeah. And that's, I mean, coincidence or not, exactly what we believe in, right? That there are only 2 people who know who's, what price you're getting. Is it great or not? Someone who's selling it to you right now, and someone who's sold it to you in the past. Yeah. And obviously, we can never give our customers the knowledge of someone who's selling it right now, that massive conflict of interest, but someone who has sold it in the past to your region until pretty recently. There's no better source of knowledge, right, than someone who's done those deals. When it came to benchmarking deals against your peers, especially in the not-for-profit sector, what questions do you guys ask? Because every deal's a bit different, right? How do you know? Yeah,
it's difficult to compare. So the easiest place is the per user per month. And that's a more modern thing. That wasn't really a thing 15 years ago. If you're buying a storage area network, you can't really compare. You can compare, did you buy the premium platinum or triple titanium tier kind of question? And I can come back to that.
Is that what you guys are selling now?
There is a difference. There is a difference. And I can tell you when I first found out there was a difference. So per user per month is probably the easiest. How much are you paying for ChatGPT? Is it $30, $20, $10, $8, 5, 2? But how long for? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? What's the total cost of ownership? Does that include an implementation? So I think in that space, you can do a like-for-like comparison. In other places, it's a lot harder. And it is only in the business case where you will work out the cost per network port. And even that doesn't matter. Because then what's the density of your office? Do you end up with an excess of network ports for redundancy? So actually I did get to a point where I was a global CIO for a group of 25 companies across 16 countries. And we defined a standard which said because this was proper cloud storage and so on, every office would have a standard offering. It would have storage area network, it would have a couple of servers with VMware for redundancy, it would have network, and it would have Wi-Fi. Boom, boom, boom. That's it. Small, medium, large office. That was the standard. And like a really small office would go, that's a lot of money. But then they would have their servers fall over and then they can't print and they've lost their data and they didn't have backups and all of those other things. So you define that standard and you would try and reach some kind of agreement on it. Negotiating on the price, like sometimes it just doesn't matter that much. If you are doing a multi-year Salesforce implementation or you're doing a huge data center upgrade, then yeah, the cost of the server. I think actually probably the first things I ever bought were laptops and servers. And with servers, it was just box shipping. So you'd go around all the vendors, and it was great when they had open pricing because they would just say, we're just making a 1% markup. And you just go, well, that's not going to be sustainable for you. You're doing that at the outset. So we'd have to go and get 3 quotes every time we wanted to buy a server and go to a different vendor each time. I'm like, how much is this costing us? And we'd sit with one vendor and go, right, we intend to buy 50 over the next 12 months. Let's agree a fixed price, markup price on cost. And it just saved a huge amount of time. And maybe you were paying £50 more or £100 more on the server, but it paid dividends further down the line. And just the amount of effort, where do we get it from? Who do we call for the warranty? All of those problems.
And how did those negotiations evolve over time? Because software has changed a lot in recent years. What have you witnessed to be the biggest changes in those negotiations with them, let's say in the last 10 years?
I was always up to speed with the right tactics, the right conversations for the right solution, but not everyone was. So when we were buying Google Apps over a decade ago, like no one was buying per user per month, and no one was putting all of their data in the cloud in the same way. And I remember we had a Gartner subscription and they said, oh, we'll get you a call with our procurement team. Of course, this was my first exposure to the world of procurement. And we got on the call with these experts who were like, what to look for in the contract and what to watch out for and all this stuff. And all the advice they gave us was completely wrong. Like when I say wrong, I listened to them like, this doesn't make sense. And what I realized is they were basically bringing out the playbook on how to negotiate Oracle licensing, ERP licensing for Google Apps. I'm like, these are 2 very different things. They're like, you've got to lock in 3-year deals. You've got to lock in, and Google going, we're not going to lock you in for 3-year deals, right? You're going to come back because we're going to deliver you a great service. And this was one of the tensions I'd always had was they'd always try and lock you in for pipeline, right? If they've got 1, 2, 3 years, the pipeline looks good, figures look good. And I would always argue, it keeps us both on our toes if we have a 12-month contract. And so networks were the only time, like wide area networks were the only time I'd ever do multi-year deals because it would take you 9 months to procure. You want to keep each other on our toes because they don't want to lose us, but also we don't want to lose them. So a 12-month renewal cycle means we're doing a great job, we renew. You're doing a great job, we renew. It's a high level of confidence there. And it gives us the ability to pivot, to change the footprint and so on, rather than locking us in for 3 years. I mean, ironically, now I do sell 1, 2, and 3-year deals. And the relief of selling a 3-year deal is I know that in 12 months I don't have to have a conversation about a renewal. But it's just the conversation. It's not the risk of churn. Quite frankly, the risk of churn, if that's happening, we're doing something else wrong. I don't ever want to be held or hold a partner to a contract to say, well, you have to stay. The whole point is you've got to be delivering good service. And if there comes a point where it is no longer adding value, there's a bigger problem. And then you're going to get churn further down the line.
But higher education loves 5, 7, 10-year deals even.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't exposed to that in LBS, but I know that larger institutions do. In this day and age, beyond a wide area network, probably, honestly, if anyone is signing in for a 5-year deal, that's insanity.
Well, it's happening. We're seeing, this is the crazy thing, is that you've got, at the same point in time, this talk of SaaS apocalypse, right? SaaS is dead. It's all over. And then, so that's
Have you
on
been
the
reading
one.
our website?
No, well, other people are also saying it, right? So there's that end of the spectrum. The other one is you've got like a Scottish university signing a 10-year VLE contract, and I'm wondering what on earth is going on, right?
Oh my goodness!
It's still happening.
So look, Cloudforce sells Nimbler One, which is a generative AI platform, but it runs inside the client's Microsoft Azure tenant. So the whole idea is secure, private, equitable access. And when I say equitable, is we don't have a per user per month license. We just say, provided, depending on the size of your institution, not the size of your deployment, depending on the size of your institution, you pay a fixed price. And you can roll out to 1, 10, 100, 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 people if you want. We don't care. Because it runs inside your tenant. So we're not actually hosting it, which means we don't have access to your privacy or your data. And so on that basis, we've done away with the situation where universities are looking at this and saying, how much am I going to be paying? If I want to get Copilot for everyone, if I want to get ChatGPT for everyone, if I want to get Claude for everyone, it's just going to cost a fortune. And then whatever I get, someone else is going to want something different. And so you're multi-layering, and then you're going, you know what it's like, right? You sell licenses and they don't get used. So you're constantly shuffling licenses around the organization, and then you're trying to reduce and contract the licensing. You just create so much work for that. So we SaaS is dead from that perspective. I mean, I get the SaaS model. I've loved the SaaS model because there are some really strong parts of that, which is I can just get 10 licenses. I don't have to go negotiate site-wide licenses. I don't have to have these things on my server have concurrent licensing, or the number of buildings, or the number of floors, or the number of rooms, depending. It just gets really complicated. So there are pros and cons in all of these approaches. SaaS is not dead. I'll call bullshit on that straight away. The reality is having someone else have to making it their problem is not a bad thing. Now, in our case, the someone else is Microsoft, so it's running in their tenant. So it's still not the client's problem. So it still works. It's this kind of pseudo SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, who knows what kind of private hosted solution. It's very unique. No one else does it in the world of what we do. The reason I got Google Apps, I'll keep coming back to Google Apps because I loved it so much. The reason I got Google Apps was because that person that I recruited who looked after our application development, I was speaking to her way before that, and she said that they had gone to Ocado, had gone to Google Apps, and that one line, our admins loved it. They didn't have to manage Exchange anymore. That was it. That was the one trigger to go to Google Apps. We could switch off all of our global network of Exchange servers, which meant that if I was sitting in the office at 4:45 and suddenly the email went down, I could just go home because I knew that by the time I got home, email was back up again and we didn't have to lift a finger. And that's pretty incredible. The idea of calculating how much would it cost if I hosted it versus how much will it cost if I got it SaaS is crap, because you can host it now, host it well, host it reliably, have 24/7 support, secure it, and then all of a sudden, it's a whole different world. And yeah, look, if you're a major institution and you've got your own data centers and you've got massive teams and you've got your own SOC, then fine, but you're at a different scale. But for most SMEs, you just cannot do a better job. And if you can, it's totally dependent on one person who's been there for 20 years and no one else knows how it works. So
that's dangerous, isn't it?
It's normal and it's dangerous and it's ridiculous. So I'm a huge fan of hosted solutions. The cloud is just someone else's server. Ball.
Today, we're seeing obviously huge advances in AI, and platforms like Lovable and Cursor and Replit and obviously Claude and ChatGPT, making it easier than ever to build stuff sort of on the fly, vibe code, whatever you call it. How do you think that's changing software negotiations and how software vendors are positioning themselves in those kind of new build versus buy conversations?
Realistically, Gen AI, you know how it's coming really fast and it's going to take everyone's jobs, and yeah, that's not happening.
You're still waiting for that, yeah?
No, it's not happening. Anyone who's got their eyes open, knows that that's not happening. Anyone who has been involved in any kind of digital transformation for the last 20 plus years will know you can bring in the best tool in the world. If you cannot get the organization to understand what is even the problem that they're trying to solve, not the short-term fix, but the long-term fix, it is so hard. Organizations have brought tools in, solutions in, agile methodologies in, and they just meet the resistance. This is all a change management job. So the idea, I vibe coded my first app 2 weeks ago. It's cool fun. Like I don't code. I haven't coded since 1999 when it was COBOL DB2 on a mainframe at Waitrose.
Have things changed since then?
Not really. That was dreamy days. One computer for the whole company. It's amazing. Life was so much easier. I vibe coded an app for a bit of fun. Wonderful prototyping. Like, how cool is that? Well, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? What could it look? Here you go. I built the app. Great. Don't put that into production. Whatever you do, don't put that into production. Software engineering, Jensen Wang was talking about this from NVIDIA recently. If you are a coder whose job is to take a spec and write the code and deliver, you'll be out of work. But you shouldn't be that person. Your job is to use the tools available to solve problems and find problems that need to be solved, right? That's what a proper software engineer does. And all these tools are going to really help those people. It's, there's been so much advancement of technology to help in engineering, software engineering, and the like. But in the hands of the craftspeople, I think that's really important. So the idea, so actually I was joking about the mainframe, but genuinely, we used to call it distributed computing, right? When you went from one computer, one mainframe that ran the entire company, to lots of Windows servers, and then Unix servers, and then Linux servers, and all of those. And they're like, how do we manage distributed? How do we manage 20 servers, or 2,000, or 20,000? The idea that people are going to write their own vibe-coded apps and they're going to have it in GitHub and host it in Vercel is a governance nightmare, absolute nightmare. And I think it will deliver incredible value to prototyping and ideation, and it will last about 3 minutes until everything falls apart. You think it was bad enough having one engineer that had all the knowledge? Now it's like macros in spreadsheets, right? Who hasn't worked in an organization where the original expenses sheet was just a macro in Excel, and the person that wrote the macro had gone 4 years ago and no one knew how to edit it or to change it, right? It's that multiplied by 100,000 all over an organization. Bottom line, organizations are not grabbing Gen AI with both hands. And I work with lots and lots of different clients, and the most advanced ones are only so advanced. And even they are just starting to scratch the surface. And the least advanced ones will be the ones who will say, yeah, we haven't started thinking about our AI strategy yet. 2026. We haven't bought any tools. Yeah, but 97% of your staff are already using them, and you have not provided any of them. So it's a change management problem, and it's a design problem. And guess what? It's a data problem.
Of course.
It all goes back to data. So all the people who've been talking about their data strategies, now's the time. And there are better ways and easier ways. It's a bit like the question, are you using Fabric? And the answer, we're just starting to go down that path. I've not met anyone who said, yeah, and we have conquered it. We are there. Because those people, now they exist, don't get me wrong, they exist. Those people are dominating because they are on top of their data. Then they can use Gen AI on top of that data. But ultimately, it's a data problem. It's a change management problem. It's a data problem. And they need security, privacy, governance, control, visibility.
A very simple data problem that we run into all the time is good data on which software vendors and contracts an organization has.
Yes.
Right? Still, so many run this through spreadsheets or outdated systems where things just are weird inside it. Like you'll see an Oracle contract with a renewal date like in 1915.
Yeah.
Which is just, I don't even know how that happens. What's the right way to track the contracts and vendors that an organization has? What's the best way to do it?
Governance. So I've sat in organizations where you could put the contract into the data privacy management system. You could put the contracts into the finance system. You can put I've been in organizations where they've just gone and bought a contracts database. The procurement team bought a contract software without engaging with the software team and then threw it away because it didn't integrate with anything. So ideally, somewhere pretty near your finance system, ideally something that can talk to other things. But my first response was governance. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's on a piece of paper, like genuinely. It can be on a piece of paper as long as it is done consistently and everyone knows where to go to.
And whose responsibility is that? Is that IT or procurement?
That's the problem,
or someone
right?
else?
Who's I think breaking anything into a silo is a problem. We're having it right now in our own. We have an IT function, we have a product function, we have a customer success function, we have a marketing function. Is that marketing or is it product? Is it sales or is it customer success? Why? You're trying to answer a question because you've created a monster. A question, if you were a company of 3, which you probably were about 9 months ago, right?
Yeah, not so long, yeah.
You didn't sit there and go, hey, is this a marketing problem
You
or
just
is
crack
this a
on.
sale? You get on with it and you apply a bit of marketing and you apply it. And that's the problem. The problem is you silo things and then you try and make things fit the silo. And whose problem is it? It is the problem of sales, of finance, of procurement. It's the problem of all of them. And until they can cohesively come together, then you're not going to solve the problem. I talk in kind of software development world, I talk a lot about Conway's Law. And so Conway's Law, when related to system architecture, is that the solution is going to look like the team that built it. So if you go to a company's website, you can see exactly how that company is organized. You can see that from the website. And it's not necessarily aligned with how the customer buys the product. It is aligned to. So the solution is you build a team that looks like the solution that you want to create. And the same, if you go to the exec, you will have a chief people officer and a chief technology officer and a chief marketing officer. And like the responsibility for people and AI, is that chief people officer or is that chief technology officer? Well, it's both. And if they go, that's my lane, my team are dealing with that. Oh, but I can't do it because you haven't bought my software for me. It just doesn't work. Now, I'm not going to solve all the world's problems, but it's super hard. The short answer is, who cares? Who's impacted by it? Get them in the room and get them to collectively own it. Have the CEO set them a group objective, team objectives to get it working. If you make it a single silo, it'll always be biased towards that silo.
You now deal, I presume, with quite a few CIOs, but on the vendor,
I do.
You're on the vendor side, and they're your buyers.
They're my friends, Sergei.
Friends. Sorry. They're much more than buyers. How are they thinking about all this stuff? And, how do you see them change the way that they work?
They are all very different. Genuinely, some know exactly what they want. They know exactly how they're going to procure it, and they're just in there. Some are going, and unfortunately, because of the relationship I'm able to have with them, I'm not joking. A lot of them are my friends. They're able to go, "How did you do it? What would you recommend?" And they're like, "Can we have a regular call?" I'm going to send them the quote for my coaching services later, but we kind of support each other along the way. And then often I'll just say, speak to this guy or the CIO of XYZ, and we'll help each other. We've created a kind of customer support group. It's a customer, our own user group to support each other, because we work in an open space, right? At no point are you selling Salesforce to Visa and Visa says and say, oh, speak to MasterCard, they did a really good implementation. That's not going to happen, is it? Or is it not for profit? You can definitely do that. Everyone's approaching it very differently. What I am finding is, our chief revenue officer is saying, how can we get a predictable path to sale? How can we predict the amount of time it's going to take? Who are the key stakeholders in decision? I'm like, it will depend, because you're dealing with two very specific and different things. So you've got generally a CIO who's like, sees a solution, knows what they want, let's go. And then they've got these two externalities. One is procurement, God bless procurement, who are, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about their job? I hope no procurement people listen to this, right?
Of course they do.
I take it all back. Their job is to keep themselves in a job, right? Is to create so many layers of governance. They're not delivering agility. They're delivering absolute certainty, and everything is buttoned up in a very fast-moving world, right? There's a real contradiction in that. I'll give you a little example of what that looks like. And then the other externality is the AI steering group. They didn't exist 5 minutes ago, right? So you've got this like long in the tooth body, and then you've got this brand new body. The brand new body generally meet every 2 months, 3 months. And what do they talk about? They talk about the strategic view, the long-term view. No, they don't. No, they don't. They talk about Fable. They talk about Sol, Terra, Luna. They talk about the words that you didn't know existed 3 minutes ago, that didn't exist between the meeting agenda going out and the meeting happening. That's the conversation. And they'll talk about their own personal and specific needs, because by and large, they're not a strategic entity that are aligned to your digital transformation of your organization. That's not to say they don't understand it and they don't want to input it into it, but they're just talking about that new feature, that new capability, and how it can be utilized and exploited. And so all of a sudden, the CIO is just going, help me, please help me. And I'll give you one last example, because the procurement example I gave, I can draw a parallel to Chief Information Security Officer. CISO's job is not to secure the organization at all costs. That's not their job. They think it's their job, but that's not their job. Their job is to secure the organization while still allowing operation flexibility and agility. That's a good CISO. And so the same needs to apply to procurement. How do I run with procurement, keeping it in check? Our own internal kind of contracts team, as I say procurement, our own internal, they are procurement as well, contracts team, they do that. They run with the herd, and they go, how can we improve your process? How can we enable you? When we get red lines, they're flipped in 5 minutes. Right? They don't go in a queue and wait 3 weeks and like, well, we can't agree to that. It's like, how can we be pragmatic? How can we enable the fluidity and the agility of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, this is a piece of friction that we see all the time, right? And in our own sales cycles, and also in the relationships between CIOs and heads of procurement that we deal with, right? It can be such a push and pull tug of war, right? So I want to play a game.
Oh, I love games.
This is actually the first time we've ever played this game. Okay. And it's to do with the release of our new mascot, Win the Wolf. And the game is called Howl or Growl. Okay, so if this is a great success, then all credit to me. If it's a great failure, then we blame Abiso, whose idea it was.
All right, so I need to say howl or growl.
You need to say howl or growl. But howl means basically green flag.
Yeah.
Growl is red flag.
Okay.
And I've got some phrases for you that vendors typically will say when they're selling.
All right.
And then if you think it's all good, it's fair play, then howl. If you think it's offside or unacceptable, growl.
And am I allowed, after I howl or growl?
You can explain.
Can I add a sentence?
Yes, you can. First question is, this price is only valid until end of quarter.
So I'm gonna go with growl.
Okay, why?
But I could do an entire episode on this.
See, it's good you've been on the buy side and on the sell side. You know what's at play, right?
I've got 3 statements on this. Okay, so as a buyer, first thing I would do was use sales tactics on my sellers. First thing I would do, I would impose a time limit. Look, we're about to reach our end of whatever. I've got this much budget available. If I don't spend it now, we have to get this deal done by the end of the week. So as a buyer, I'm saying we have to get this deal done by the end of the week, but this is the limit of the budget available. Or my boss is off, so I've got a higher signing authority. Actually, just to be clear, I've never abused that. I've never lied. They've always been true. But I've gone, what variables have I got that I can then turn the tables and use the same principles? Like, hey, I can. So that was as a buyer. If the vendor said that to me, I would just go growl, like whatever. If you can do that price on the 31st, you can do that price on the 1st. As a vendor, actually, there are some real levers there. Genuinely, when I'm saying we can only do it until this point, it is absolutely genuine. It is, we have to meet a certain target, that will have an impact. If that comes in one day later, I've actually got another 3-month window where I can kind of make up the difference. And the urgency is not gone. So as a vendor, I realize that it can be real, right? As a buyer, I never really appreciated it could be real, but as a buyer, I would turn the tables and I would use a time-limited offer on my part.
Next question. We'd love to make you a case study. Howl or growl? This is the vendor talking to you. You're the buyer.
All right. I'm going to howl, right? Because I spoke earlier about the value, the thing that you can give that has high value to them and low cost to you and vice versa. And having worked for high profile organizations, case study was always there. And again, those stories are really important. And if you Google me on the OneTrust website, on the Google website, there are lots of situations where you will find videos of me going back 10 years, and they don't have masses of them. So they've really invested very heavily. Now, it depends who you are, okay? So if you're the number 1 CIO, if you're in a world-leading business school, or if you're in a, Andy Nolan, you've got these really strong brands that actually have a really huge impact. Making you a referenceable client delivers incredible value. And so I don't expect like a discount, but it cements an element of relationship.
Next one. Our platform pays for itself in 6 months. Howl or growl?
Growl. Your platform doesn't do anything for anyone. It is 100% like trying to business cases that get all the benefits that never, the benefit realization that never gets measured 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line. The whole world has changed between now and then. You're trying to predict the future. You're buying, this idea is just crazy. And so I have a particular person who said to me, I got this solution and they told me that in 6 months, I will reduce my number of service test cases through AI automation by 50%. 18 months later, I'm like, how's it going? Yeah, it turned out our documentation wasn't good enough. Now, funnily enough, they were the person who recommended Nebula One to me, so I don't hold everything against them. But the reality is the product's never going to make the difference. Our product is not going to make the difference.
You must remember some pretty weird business cases that sales reps would put together to you as CIO back in the day.
Yeah, I would just ignore them. I would buy them because I had a very specific need, right? My network was out of warranty, or we just needed agility on our project management, and running Microsoft project wasn't. Those reps, those business cases, they don't count for anything, and they still don't count for anything. Our solution can absolutely enable the transformation of your organization. And it cannot. At the end of the day, if your CIO or your team are not going to put in the effort, you're not going to get anywhere.
Final howl or growl is we can throw in some free training if you sign this week.
I'm going to go with howl on that.
That's okay.
If you'd said we can give you a free trial, I would give you a growl.
Really?
Yeah. So the situation where they're saying, oh yeah, we just need to put this in your data center and we can monitor all the traffic and we can look at the vulnerabilities and we can do the security. I'm like, do you know how much work that's going to be for us to do that? Or we can do a security assessment and provide you a report. Do you know how much work that is going to be? It's not free. I mean, we did one actually with via Microsoft a few years ago. It was a lot of work and it created a huge report, but it was a lot of work. It wasn't free. And we didn't pay them, but it was a lot of work. And then we're going, well, okay, what are we going to do with this report? And actually we use that as a basis for our cyber transformation. Throwing in some free training. Look, I mean, the reality is that training is not cheap. And yes, okay, they're training you on how to use their product, but they have a finite number of trainers, right? I have a different perspective of it now. And they cost a lot of money. And they're a finite resource. And so if I commit, and we do it now, right? We'll travel up to Manchester, or we'll go to Amsterdam, or we'll go to Spain, and we'll deliver workshops and so on. We love it because we get to engage with the clients and so on. But there is a cost. There is a tangible cost. And once we hit a scale, now if we say we'll throw in some free licenses, great. Like, that's low cost to them. You get a boost. You get the client really bought into the solution. And then when they get to renewal, maybe they're going to... Well, what you're doing, you're taking the edge off going, I need to buy just enough licenses. And the vendor go, look, we'll throw in an extra. Takes the pressure off.
Bit of buffer.
Yeah, it gives you a buffer. It gives you time to breathe. Really flex it out. I did it with DocuSign multiple times. People didn't use it. Why? Because you need governance, you need structure, you need processes. Done right, it's amazing. But not done right, it's a waste of time. So, yeah. Have I ruined your game?
No. That's the end of the
cool.
game. You did very well. I don't know if you're the winner or loser. You can't really win or lose. It's yeah.
As the only player. That's why I always do 100-meter sprints on my own. I can always win.
Can't, yeah.
Unless I trip over and don't make it to the finish line.
No, we'll say you're a winner. We'll say you're a winner. Spelt with a Y, like our company name. So, Danny, thank you so much. Is there anything that you wanted to share with our audience today that you didn't yet have the chance?
No, I think that's good. I think we've covered a lot of topics. I'm going to do a quick time check. Oh my goodness. When we started, I said, don't look at the clock for at least half an hour, because you'll look at it and it will say 8 minutes. And it will say,
right on.
It's an hour.
The engineer is going to love us.
That was fantastic. Loved it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and talk to you.
Very good. Danny, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. I didn't know what a podcast was. And I had just finished this online course during the pandemic. And I was creating lots of output and I wanted to create something. In my mind, I'm not a creator, right? I don't come up with ideas. I don't create stuff. I take stuff and make it better. That's pretty much my entire social and professional career today. And Dave had invited me into the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast. And I thought, oh, that was interesting. And then when I was thinking about what shall I create, because I really want to create something, I thought, I'll do a podcast. And I took it from zero to first episode live in about 6 weeks. But that was from zero. I don't know what it's about. I don't know what it's going to be called. I don't know what the branding is. I don't know who the guests are going to be. I don't know how to edit it. I don't have the technology. And when I went live with the first episode, I had done a teaser trailer, Episode 1 launched, and episode 2 and 3 were finished and in the can. So it was like full on.
You took it seriously.
I took it seriously.
You locked in.
And then from that point on, it was just a rhythm. I was doing one every week for about 26 weeks.
That's where we need to get to.
Yeah. It's a lot of
hard work.
It's a lot of work.
It's hard work.